All right, today we are diving into one of the most painfully funny stories I think I've ever read. It's called The Luncheon by W Somerset Maugham. And trust me, it is an absolute masterclass in how one little meal, just a simple lunch, can spiral into complete financial chaos, all thanks to a bit of vanity and some expert-level manipulation. It's just drenched in irony. But let me ask you something first. Have you ever been stuck in one of those situations? You know the one where you just know you should say no, but social pressure or just not wanting to be rude traps you into saying yes. It's like watching a disaster happen in slow motion, and you're the star, and you just can't stop it. Yeah, hold on to that feeling. So the story actually kicks off 20 years after this whole lunch fiasco. Our narrator, who's now a pretty successful writer, bumps into the woman from that day. He barely even recognizes her, but oh, she remembers him, and she vividly remembers the lunch that he supposedly invited her to. As you'll see, his version of that invitation is a little bit different. And just like that, her words send us hurtling back in time, 2 whole decades. We find our narrator as a young guy in Paris, totally broke, just trying to make it as a writer. He gets this letter from a woman who's read his book. She's a fan. She says she's just passing through Paris, and she'd absolutely love it if he'd treat her to a little luncheon. Okay, you have to appreciate the setup here, because the contrast is everything. On one side, you've got our writer's reality. I mean, a tiny little apartment overlooking a cemetery, and he has a grand total of 80 francs. 80! To last him the entire month. And on the other side, her little request. Lunch at Foyos. You know, just a casual spot so expensive that pretty much only French senators eat there. But he's young, he's flattered. How could he say no? I mean, really, what could possibly go wrong? And so the lunch begins. Our narrator is just desperately clinging to this hope that they can have a nice, modest, cheap meal. The lady, though, she has some very different ideas. And this is where the story's dark humor just completely takes over. We get a front row seat to her masterclass in manipulation. She starts off by putting him completely at ease. She says, "I never eat more than one thing." You can just imagine the wave of relief washing over our poor writer. He's thinking, okay, I can survive this. Little does he know that one single sentence is about to become the most ironic and expensive lie he has ever heard. So after going on about how people eat way too much these days, she just casually wonders if they have any salmon. Now, it's early in the year for salmon, which means 2 things. 1, it's not on the menu, and 2, it's going to be ridiculously expensive. And of course, they have a beautiful piece. So he orders it for her. So while they're waiting for that salmon, she immediately proves her own rule wrong. I never eat more than one thing, unless, of course, there happens to be a little caviar. The narrator's heart just plummets. He knows he absolutely cannot afford caviar, but he's in this social trap, right? He just can't bring himself to say no. Then we get to the drinks. "Oh, I never drink anything for luncheon," she says. And he, so smartly, quickly agrees, "Neither do I," hoping that's the end of it. But no. She just keeps talking, explaining that her doctor has insisted she drink nothing but champagne. Champagne! He literally turns pale, but what can he do? He orders half a bottle. Her technique here is just brilliant. It's like psychological warfare. After the salmon and the caviar, she waves the menu away, declaring she couldn't possibly eat another bite, and then, so casually, she mentions it would be such a shame to leave Paris without trying the giant asparagus. See what she did? She frames it like this wistful little thought, putting all the pressure back on him to be the generous host. And he's seen this asparagus in the shops. He knows it's, in his words, horribly expensive. He is silently praying, just begging the waiter to say they don't have any. But instead, the waiter's face just lights up, talking about what a marvel they are. The narrator's worry is now full-blown panic. He's not just worried about making his money last the month, he's worried about being able to pay this bill at all. As she's just devouring these enormous asparagus spears, she gives him this little piece of advice. Can you believe it? It's a wonderful philosophy, I guess, especially when someone else is footing the bill for the mountain of food you're eating while claiming you're barely having a thing. Just when he thinks it has to be over, the waiter comes back. "Coffee?" he asks, and she says yes, just an ice cream and coffee. At this point, our narrator he's past caring. The financial ship has sailed, hit an iceberg, and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. He just orders it, completely resigned to his fate. And then comes the final, fatal blow. As she's talking, the head waiter brings over this basket of huge, gorgeous peaches. And while she's lecturing the narrator on how he's overfilled his stomach with his one little mutton chop, she just absent-mindedly picks one up. And that is the final nail in his financial coffin.
So let's just do a quick recap of her one thing. She had salmon and caviar and champagne and giant asparagus, ice cream, coffee, and a peach, all while criticizing him for ordering his one single, cheapest thing on the menu, mutton chop. The hypocrisy is just... it's breathtaking.
Okay, so the meal is finally over. The damage is done, and now for the moment our narrator has been dreading for the last hour. The waiter is walking over with the bill. This is the one question that is just hammering away in his head. Remember, he walked in there with 80 francs to get him through the rest of the month. A normal lunch would have been, what, 15 francs? This was not a normal lunch. In his panic, he comes up with this absolutely mortifying escape plan. If the bill is too high, he'll just pretend his wallet was stolen. It's such an absurd, over-the-top idea, but it just goes to show you how terrified he is of the humiliation that's coming. He pays the bill. Somehow, he has just enough to cover it. But after he settles this insane cost, he has exactly 3 francs left over. 3, which is just a laughably tiny amount for a tip. And he knows, from the icy look she gives him, that she thinks he's cheap. And as they're leaving, she hits him with this final, unbelievable piece of advice. He shoots back that he'll do one better. He'll eat nothing for dinner tonight. She just laughs, calls him a humorist, and hops into a cab, leaving him completely and utterly broke for the rest of the month. So now, let's flash forward again. We're back to the present day, 20 years later, where the whole story started. The narrator survived his month of starvation, and now it seems like he's finally about to get his revenge. The narrator claims he's not a vindictive man, but he says when the immortal gods take a hand in the matter, it's totally okay to just sit back and appreciate the results. So, what was the result? Today, the woman weighs 21 stone. That's almost 300 pounds. So his revenge, it turns out, wasn't anything he did. It's what she, the person who never eats more than one thing for luncheon, did to herself over the next 2 decades. And that kind of leaves us with this final thought, right? The narrator got his subtle, cosmic revenge. But it makes you wonder about justice when it comes to these little social crimes. Maybe seeing the long-term consequences of someone's own actions, maybe that's the most satisfying kind of justice there is.